circumstantial, no proof, but I'm giving it high probability because of the volume of witness testimony that there are aliens, and a lot of them eat human beings, and they particularly prefer vegetarians who don't smoke. So that there's a big they're influencing the governments of the world to ban smoking, and there's a strong influence coming down the pike, and you're going to see it, to minimize and eliminate the eating of meat even. Because, you saw this, the scares of mad cow disease, and then the bird flu, and the millions and millions of chickens that were destroyed, and the millions of cows that were destroyed, and now they're talking about cows being contributing to global warming, which, by the way, is a crock, because the seeds have been telling us since the 1990s that we're going into an ice age, and that it's going to be, really serious.
Okay.
But that's where we get to the topic that you're interested in, 2012, yeah. Well, 2012 is just an approximate marker. I think that the number 2012 came from somebody's interpretation of a Mayan calendar, and there are various interpretations of the Mayan calendar. We don't know that that's necessarily the correct one. We also don't even know if it meshes correctly with our own calendar, because our own calendar has been changed more than once. But for general references, it's kind of like an approximate date, close enough for horseshoes.
Well, okay, but you're basically getting information from the seas about not only, you were talking to them back in '94, you were getting information about now, okay, and you're also getting information.
And it's happening.
And you're seeing it happen, and then you're also getting information, in other words, going forward through, whatever year, I don't know how far forward you're going.
What year did they say things were really going to transition? What was year one? How many years forward is it?
It was 5 years, about 6 months ago.
Yeah, 6 months ago they said we have 5 years.
For?
Before year one of the new reality.
Okay.
Now, and as you know, the way they put things, there's ways you can interpret that. Either that's the end, or it's the beginning, or it's both. And what it means in terms of a beginning, well, it's up to us I think it's up to us to create it.
Mm-hmm. And that's very significant also.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is sort of a playing out of the scenarios and the agendas, for example, that they talked about in terms of the Illuminati.
Oh yeah.
And that agenda now is being put into effect. Right?
Oh yeah, it's happening.
Uh-huh.
It's happening. They've said that the frantic drive for control by these lizard beings or 4D self-service individuals is going to become so oppressive that people are going to get to where they don't even want to leave their homes. And I think we're kind of already there, for the most part, except for the ones that are being evicted from their homes because they don't have homes to live in anymore, which is another horrible part of it. That's their drive to control the money system. So they're driving to control every single aspect of our lives, and there's been at one point we asked about, was there going to be an alien invasion? Well, I'll tell you just off the side here, who needs aliens when we've got psychopaths?
But the psychopaths are being motivated by hyperdimensional beings,
yes,
and also Lizzies,
yes,
and Greys, right? Who are
Greys
on the fourth.
Well, Greys are cybergenetic probes. They're not even real beings. They're almost like plant-like, living like robots.
Sure.
They're like a cross between a plant and a critter, and they grow up like plants. And they send them because they can function in our reality much more easily than the overlords, who have great difficulty making their vibrations match with our reality. And they've also been working on hybridization projects to hybridize beings that can cross densities, that can be bi-density, they can move between densities, because they want to use these bodies themselves as incarnational opportunities when they, you know, in a sense, to use them as portals into our world.
Which they are doing and have been doing.
Oh, they have been doing.
You're saying you went through like the factual beings, okay? And
Well, we didn't start with pathological beings. We started asking a lot about aliens. And we got a lot of answers. It's in, look at this little book called High Strangeness, where I've collected together all of the material on the subject of aliens, UFOs, and that sort of thing. And
I think that's a great summation of your work, by the way.
yeah, on that topic at least. And because there's so much more. I mean, because me and my passion for history, these transcripts are just full of historical questions, you know, about, you know, I had to ask. But in any event, yeah, we started, anytime we would read something or see a video or hear about some new little bit of information, and this was back in the day when, you know, I sat down and read Val Valerian's Matrix books 1 through 4, you know, in a continuous sitting. It took a couple of weeks because they're pretty thick. But I read it from cover to cover, you know, without stopping until my eyes literally bled because I couldn't believe what I was reading. You know, I mean, oh my God, this is crazy stuff. But, and I even make mention of the Matrix books and having read them in the sessions because it was at that point in time. We had a lot of really unusual experiences, but then we got to the topic of pathology because the Seeds kept trying to say, you know, there's more to this phenomenon than you're asking about. There's more to there's more going on than your simplistic questions are allowing us to give to you. Mm-hmm. And we had to really start expanding our thinking and expanding our, you know, the possibilities. And we had experiences that led to the topics of pathology and human beings and how pathological human beings, and maybe pathology is even kind of a wrong word to use, because if something is genetically born that way and it's born that way for a purpose, how can we say that it's pathological? It is what it is. You know, pathology implies that there's a sickness. Well, it's a sickness from the point of view of normal human beings, you know, human beings who care about one another, that constitute the majority of humanity, or did. That's rapidly changing, because apparently, according to the Seeds, and it seems to be happening before our eyes, that they have been creating a ruthless race in which to incarnate themselves at the time of this upcoming macrocosmic quantum event, so that they can rule over the rest of humanity, whatever remains, in the higher density state. In other words, they want to lock this planet into their evil garden spot for them to have control and domination. They think, you know, of course, for all of eternity. That's their plan, that's their intention. And, you know, we would like to see that that doesn't happen. We'd like to see a future of freedom for people, and the Seeds have said that that also is possible. But the people, you know, can't do it until they can connect together in a certain way, and they cannot connect together in a way that can block that hyperdimensional. In other words, what we want to do is we want to cut off their power supply. There are all these pathological people on our planet, and they're getting fueled by these hyperdimensional negative beings that are negative. You can't even plumb the depths of their negativity. You read about the most horrible crimes that have ever occurred, committed by so-called humans on this planet, and you're getting a little bit of the picture of what their internal landscape is like. Okay? So, you know, pedophilia, you know, snuff films using children, cannibalism.
I totally, exactly, and we can allow people's imaginations to
Okay,
go with that.
So that's the kind of beings that they are trying to engineer. You know, I want you to really understand how horrible a world it would be if they succeeded, because they would have, you know, the total freedom to do whatever they wanted with any normal human being who has a soul and who has a conscience, and to make them suffer as much as they possibly can in order to feed off that energy of suffering, because that's what they do. They feed off of that energy of suffering. They're not psychopaths in that, they're psychophages. They are soul eaters. They eat souls. They are light eaters. They eat it. So the seeds have said that there is a way that we can cut off the power supply of these pathologicals that are taking over our planet. But it involves connecting ourselves together in a very specific way. And, I can't give you all the exact details right now because I don't have the text in front of me. But it involves clearing out your emotional garbage, getting free of your programs, the manipulated programs that have been put into you since you were born, cultural programs, religious programs, political programs, so on. But that if humanity, because what they've done is they have divided us and conquered us this way. It's like men against women, straights against gays, blacks against whites, Hispanics against whites, all of these superficial differences that mean nothing, have nothing to do with the real essential core difference, which is the difference between an individual who has a soul and has compassion and empathy for other human beings and those that do not, we're calling them pathological. I explained that, but we'll use that for the sake of convenience.
Okay.
So, the real difference is whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul. And the story of how the blood got mixed is in our most ancient legends, that somewhere along the way there was a mutation. Maybe it was a deliberate engineered being or a group of them that were put on this planet, to spread these psychopathic genes throughout the population. These individuals, any family can produce a psychopath. Some more than others because, multiple strains come together. So it's not a question of black or white or, any of those things. The question is, soul or not soul. And even the so-called organic portals, people who don't have souls, just because they aren't individual souls doesn't mean that they're bad either. It's just that they are more susceptible to being used by the negative forces because they follow the leader. And who is the leader on our world? Psychopathic individuals in positions of power. So we have a chance, we can, and the C's have given us techniques, specific instructions. We have been putting them into practice. We have a breathing and meditation program that is specifically designed. The C's have said that this program is even more ancient than anything you could ever learn, from yoga. That it is the same techniques that were used by the Paleolithic peoples who built the megaliths, who put the megaliths together. The ones who did the cave paintings. These people had stable societies. There was no warfare on the planet. The archaeology does not show violence and warfare for 25,000 years. 25,000 years. These people lived in basically what was an Edenic state. And then there was a cataclysm, a catastrophe about 13,000 years ago. The megafauna all over North America and Europe was destroyed in a single instant. And another ice age was initiated, a temporary one. It was a shorter one than the long one we had just come out of. But this was the time, I believe, that the mutations that we now deal with, the psychopathic mutations, originated. And they began at that point.
Okay, are you talking about before Atlantis or after?
Well, I would say that probably that is what is remembered as the Atlantean deluge. And I just finished reading a really marvelous book that collects the legends and myths from Eastern Europe and from Central Asia and from even Northern Europe and compares them one to another because, most of us, all we know about is the Oriental or the Middle Eastern thing, the Bible, the Bible story of this. And the Bible story of the flood is a rather late comer and it's been, highly edited and modified. There are some really ancient stories of this event, and they come from from Native American, from Australian, the Aborigines. You have stories from Pacific Islanders. You have South American stories. There are a lot of stories that are much older and more authentic than what, this highly edited, sanitized version that we get, from the Bible, which has permeated our culture.